Thomas with Houston Paint Protection, here to bring you guys another paint protection film installation video. This is going to be one of our more detailed, long format videos for people who want a lot of information. So if you've got a new vehicle or a special vehicle to do that you're looking to protect the entire exterior and you're a very detail-oriented person, then this is going to be the video for you. We're going to cover the entire process and what it takes to get these jobs done to our standard and ensure that you're protected. In general, the process for paint protection film on the whole car breaks down into a few key steps. We do our prep, where we clean and decontaminate the exterior to make sure that nothing is getting underneath the film or preventing it from seating for a long period of time. We're going to do the pattern making, where we go through and customize patterns on the computer to make sure that we're getting the proper amount of coverage for each panel, each piece of the car, and also ensuring that it's going to be very discreet install. Then we'll do the installation itself, where we're putting everything down. We have what we call our finish work, where we go through with fine trimming, taking bubbles down, heat locking edges, all of that good stuff. And finally, we have the last step, which is our quality control. However, before we jump into all of that, we're going to do one key step first, which is identifying a plan of action. Whenever we do full car paint protection film, we can do it one of two ways. We have our standard paint protection film install, and then we have a custom paint protection film install. And the main difference between the two is essentially going to be the disassembly and the pattern making on the car. In this case, the owner of this GR Corolla has opted for our custom install, which means we're going to be doing some disassembly, pulling some pieces off the car, and also making sure we change the pattern to accommodate those pieces coming off the car. When it comes to disassembly, we don't want to do it for no reason. So in general, we want to make sure that when we're pulling stuff off the car, it's going to make a material difference to the final look of the install. So we're not just going to pull things off for no reason. We want to make sure it's either going to lead to more discrete film lines or wraps. In essence, we want to make sure we're hiding more of the film. We need to make sure that it's going to contribute to a cleaner install. If you have obstructions in the panel like badges or trim pieces that are going to cause us to have to manipulate the film too much, cause work lines, distortion in the glue, things like that, if we can get rid of that and it actually contributes something positive to the overall aesthetic, then we'll go ahead and make that decision. And then finally, if you are just really picky, if the owner of the vehicle is really picky and they want to make sure the install is as well hidden as possible, then we will go for the custom install. If it is a light colored car, especially a white, we're always going to err towards the side of caution and go for the disassembly of the custom install. The reason why is lighter colored cars, if the owner isn't taking care of them or cleaning them frequently, you have a higher chance of seeing things build up on film lines, which is much more obvious on a white or light colored car. So we'll do the work on the front ends to make sure that that doesn't happen. And if you combine that with the final reason, which is how much the vehicle is actually used. So if it's a fair weather car, it's not a big deal because it's probably never going to get dirty. It's going to be well maintained, stored in a garage, all of that good stuff. If it's something like this one that's going to see more daily driving action, a lot of spirited driving and things of that nature, then it's probably a good idea to go ahead and do that extra work on the disassembly on the front end, so you have the more discreet install on the back end. And while this thing is getting filthy all the time, it's not getting built up on corners and edges and cutouts and things like that. Before we jump into the prep process, I'll go ahead and walk you guys through what disassembly on this specific vehicle actually looks like, and I'll give you some reasoning behind those choices as we go around the car.
We really only need to cover half the vehicle because it's the same on the other side, so let's go ahead and jump right in it. Typically on the front end, there's really not too much to do, so we're not going to mess with anything on the bumper, the hood, but the fenders, we do have a couple of things to consider here. So if we were to do a standard install, then we're going to be fighting a few things on this fender. So if you look right here, we've got two obstructions in the panel and we have a really close edge. So if we were to run this with patterns, what would happen is you would have a cutout. So there would be a visible film line going around this fender vent. Then there's going to be another one right here for the GR badge, and then you're going to hit the edge of the panel. So what you're going to end up having here is you're going to have film edge, film edge, film edge, film edge, and then film edge. And for a car that's going to see a lot of driving, in a lot of dirt and grime, especially here in Houston. We get a lot of those on and off rainstorms, things like that. That's just giving this thing the opportunity to show those lines a lot more obviously. Nobody wants to see that on their new car. They want it to look nice and discreet and clean all the time. So what we'll be doing is we're going to pull the fender vent and we'll pull the badge. We're going to delete the cutouts for those, and we will extend this film to where it ends behind this black piece. So when we replace the black piece, you'll never even be able to tell it's there. Same thing with the badge. We're going to pull that off, lay the film down, and then the badge goes back over on top for a nice clean look. Moving down the car, we've got the doors. So on the doors, the two most common things we look for here are going to be the mirrors and the door handles. So door handles are a big one because when you're walking up to your car, every time you reach for that door handle, you're looking at it, so that's a focal point on the car. And unfortunately, there's no real way to do these in a seamless fashion without taking them off, because what happens is you have a film cut out here, there's a handle that dips back into here to cover like the door cup area, and then it has to go back around like this. So not ideal if you want a really clean look. So what we're going to do is pull that door handle off, and then we can lay the film down all in one piece, put the door handle back on, and you'll never be able to tell it's there. The other one is the mirror. So this is specific to Toyota. So any Toyota or Lexus, if you want to pull off that door handle, we have to take off the interior door panel. The reason why that has to come off is they all have a white clip that sits back there that holds that door handle in. And so we have to go in through the back, unclip that white clip, and then pull the handle off. While you're in there, since the entire handle is already off, typically that's when we look at the mirrors to see if those need to be removed as well. If it is easily done, and again, it will make a positive material impact to the install, we will do it. And in this case, we are going to do it for the GR. Two reasons why. One, we don't want to see a cutout going around the mirror here. And two, if you look, there's a pretty big gap between that plastic and the door panel itself. And so whenever we go to install that film, if any water gets up underneath there, because it is a wet install, the water will flush in there, grab any dirt, and it falls back out, and it can end up underneath the paint protection film and cause a lot of issues for us on the installation side, and ultimately could lead to debris in the install on the back end, which we don't want. So again, if easily removed and it makes a big difference to the install, we take it off. The third thing, and it's kind of dependent on the car how easy it is to remove, and again whether it makes a difference, is the window trim. So the window trim is not a big deal when it comes to film edges, because typically we can seat that edge right up against the gasket and it's super discreet even if we don't take it off. The issue there is debris. Same thing as a mirror. A lot of debris likes to hide behind those trim pieces, so when we're installing, it falls out, causes a lot of problems. So we will always look to pull that off if it can be done easily. Another piece on the GR, and again this is just for a more discreet look, is going to be this accent panel right here on the rear door. Those are clipped on, they come off pretty easily, so we'll pop that off. That way we don't have a film line from the main door piece running on the perimeter of that trim piece. We can hide it behind there, replace that big accent piece, and then it's good to go. And then we will also cover that one as well with its own piece. Moving to the back of the car, a few different things are going to happen back here. So we've got a lot of angles, a lot of body lines, a lot of big gaps and opportunity to cause us problems. So a couple of things we're going to do here. We will pull these tail lights out. Again, big gaps under here, lots of dirt and things like that. We can try and clean behind there, but you're never going to get as deep into that cavity as you need to ensure that you're getting a really clean install. So tail lights will come out, a fairly non-intrusive process. Again, the trade-off here is worth it. And then the other one is going to be the GR Corolla lettering. So a lot of people are a little nervous about pulling badges off, because when we replace them, they want to make sure they're aligned properly. It's not a big deal. We have a method that we use here in the shop where we will actually cut a pattern that is outlining the exact shape of the badges, and we keep that stored on the side. So when we install the main piece of paint protection film over the whole hatch, we then put that pattern template back over the PPF, and then we can place all the pieces of that badge exactly where they need to go on the back end. With all of that, we are going to be ready to start the prep process. I will do some disassembly first. We're going to pull off the badges and the fender vents, but the handles, the tail lights, and the mirrors will stay on. We don't want to get too much water back in there when we're prepping, so we'll save all of that for when we're actually running the install. We'll take them off right before we lay those panels, do the necessary cleaning, and then jump straight into the install. Real quick before we jump into the actual work of prepping the vehicle, because this is one of our detailed videos, I want to give you guys a little bit more insight on what our specific process is to clean these cars. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the cracks and crevices. You know, all the areas where debris can hide, where disassembly won't help us. So if we take a look at the front end of this car, you can see how dirty it is. There's lots of debris, dirt, grime, all kinds of stuff here. Okay, so the thing that you have to consider is that everything that you can see right there on that grill is also going to be present here, deep inside of these recessed areas, right? And they're everywhere, all around the perimeter of the bumper, underneath the headlights, which we aren't taking out, around the emblem, the grill, and basically that pattern will replicate itself all around the car. So behind the door seals, the trim pieces that sit on the roof, the rear hatch spoiler, all of that stuff has stuff hiding behind it. So what we want to make sure to do is to get some of our more aggressive cleaners, and then we keep these fine detail brushes on hand. I'm not sure if you can see how it's got all these fine bristles. It's kind of like a makeup brush. And then we'll get these to splay out and get them in all these crevices and very patiently clean behind all these hidden areas all around the car. Another key thing we do is we clean up the wheels, tires, fender wells, all the lower areas of the car where it gets really heavy road grime. You can see how greasy these tires are right here. That's because when the owner of the vehicle bought the car, they put the tire dressing on at the dealership, that silicone-based stuff that sticks to everything. It's hard to tell on camera, but even underneath the wheel wells, all the fender liner and everything is also very greasy. And so that stuff, when he drives, especially if he's driving in the rain, it's going to get thrown all over the fender, down the side of the car. It's going to end up in the jams here by the doors, the rocker panels. And so we have to wrap the film there. We're going to be wrapping the film inside of those jams and setting it on the back side of the door. Well, when you have stuff like tire dressing caked up back there, you know, we can install the entire door and go to wrap and it's not going to stick because it's got that greasy residue. The other one that gets us as well is going to be cavity waxes and anything that's flowing out of the interior of the panel. So again, we're looking at this car, you know, we're going to custom modify these patterns so we can wrap this trailing edge of the door here, so we can wrap underneath here on the bottom edge of the door, and even the leading edge of the door back there, which you can barely see. And so what happens is these cavity waxes, oils, greases, all the stuff that's getting kicked up from this car gets in all of those areas, even like the corners of the doors, the fuel tank area, everywhere where we have to have exact placement. Those types of residues can either prevent the film from sticking on the install, which means it's a huge waste of time for us, or it can cause lifting in the future, so it becomes a durability issue. On top of cleaning all the cracks and crevices and making sure we get all of that debris and contamination off the car, we need to also be chasing residues that will cause installation and or durability issues. Engine bay is another huge one. This one was not affected the way some new cars are, but a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take that really greasy tire dressing, spray it all over the engine, so when you operate the engine and it heats up, it gets in the air and it'll get all here behind the hood, and it will prevent us from being able to wrap the hood and get a clean install. So the first thing that I like to do is hit all of the cracks and crevices first before the main wash. Then we'll do a heavy duty clean in all of the edges and wrapped areas with an acid-based cleaner to pull any kind of greasy residues off. And after all of the fine cleaning has been done, then we will go through and hit wheels, tires, and fender wells and lower areas to do the heavy duty cleaning. Then we will jump into the main car wash. So we'll wash the car, soap and water, and then at that point, everything has been cleaned. So there's only 2 steps after that, and that's going to be to do our mineral and scale deposit removers, iron removers, which are chemical decontamination steps. We're using chemicals to pull stuff out of the paint that a typical wash won't grab. And then finally, we'll do a clay bar as a means of physical decontamination to pull anything that is remaining on the paint that's stuck on that might show up underneath the film that the wash and chemical decontamination did not get. As you can tell, this is a very thorough process. We're very specific and intentional on how we prep these cars to make sure that you're getting, again, the best coverage, the most discreet install, and a clean, durable install that will last you a long time. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, we've got our acid and our towel. I'm gonna go through and clean the perimeter of all the panels, all the areas where we're gonna wrap and tuck the film. So this is the residue removal step that I mentioned just a while ago. So we get our towel, and we're just gonna get everything here. Moving on to the door over here. Again, we're going to be wrapping the trailing edge, the bottom edge, and the leading edge. Super important. You see these plugs here. This is where cavity wax normally comes out and causes issues down here on the bottom wraps, notorious for lifting. So we want to make sure that we clean all of this stuff very thoroughly. Pillar will be wrapped all around, so let's get that. So even the technique of the brush matters here. We don't really just want to, skate across the surface. We want to make sure those bristles splay out and get up underneath there and get in those important areas, because that's what'll bite you if you don't do it properly. Alright, so we just sprayed the chemical decon. This is for iron, mineral, and scale deposit removers. See how all the little specks are turning purple? This is all embedded contamination that otherwise wouldn't come off without this product. So we spray this first to let it loosen everything up and pull it out of the paint. And if there's anything that doesn't come all the way out but just gets loosened up, we'll knock it down with the next and final step, which is the clay bar. Alright, so the GR Corolla is all prepped downstairs, mostly taken apart at least for what we can do in the beginning. And now we're going to be looking at our software where we keep all of our patterns housed for all the different makes and models. We start off with the base patterns and we go through and modify them to make sure that we're getting the type of coverage and discrete wraps that we want. Anywhere you see green or dashed lines or any kind of edits, they'll show up here, and as you can see, pretty much every piece we go through and edit in some way. We're very particular about how this gets done. It's just like designing or building anything else. It's much easier to fix it on paper than it is to print stuff out and have to redo it. So we spend a lot of time here just going through every piece, making sure it's going to align with our expectation on the back end, and then we cut the film. After all of this stuff is cut, we'll go downstairs and start the installation. And then real quick, I'll just flip around. This is one of our plotters. We have multiple of these. We use them for different materials, but this is the one that we use for our paint protection film. So this is where all the magic happens when it comes to cutting. And then again, all of the patterns that we make are going to be oversized, so we'll have to go back through and do all of our final trimming work and finish work on the back end to get them exactly where we want them to be. we're back downstairs. We're gonna start with the hood and then I'll work my way around the car. So I've got my film set up over there on what we call a peel board. You can actually see the hood piece that I've cut right here. I've already lifted it off the liner and sprayed a bunch of our soapy slip solution behind it, so it's what we call floating, so it's ready to go. I can peel it off and throw it on the car. Now, one thing we need to do before we lay the film down is finish our prep process. So we do the prep where we clean the car, and we have a mini prep process before we lay the film on the car. And it's just a couple of different steps. The first one is going to be 99% isopropyl alcohol around the entire perimeter of the hood. So anywhere where we're gonna set a corner or an edge, we want to do one final residue removal step, and that's what this alcohol is for. It's a solvent. So all the cleaning we did before gets rid of all types of grime and dirt, oils, things like that. And then if there's any like soap scum or any kind of remaining residues from just us cleaning the car, this will get it off and give us a bare clean surface to set the film. So what I'm gonna do is get the back corners of the hood and then the full perimeter underneath, since we're gonna be wrapping the edges underneath so you can't see them when you close the hood. And then we'll do one final cleaning step to get any dust off the hood that settled on it in the last few minutes, and then we're good to go. We're gonna repeat this process on every piece of the car. So I'm only gonna show you this once or twice, but it's essentially the same steps for every panel. Alcohol wipe it, clean it, rinse it off, lay the film, and then move on to finish work. This one was just completed, and you can see here there's no really visible film lines. Everything has been wrapped and tucked, and once we put all the pieces back in, you won't even be able to tell that it's got paint protection film on it. It's exactly what we're looking for. As you guys can see, I just pulled out the tail light here, and that's so we can wrap here inside. That way there's no film lines running on the perimeter of this area once we put it all back together. On a vehicle that's going to see as much mileage as this, low to the ground, Houston weather, we want to delete as much of those lines as possible so we don't get buildup. That is a very small nuanced change to the install. It's literally just this part that we're trying to hide, but to get there we have to take out the floor of the trunk, this main trim piece in the back. We have to break loose this interior carpeted cover. There's a trim piece here, some 10mm bolts, and then just various clips and tabs and wiring harnesses to break loose, just so we can get that light out. You know, just that small C cutout that runs along the perimeter of the light requires all of this additional time. It is worth it for the right person. This is why we charge more for this type of install, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more detail on how it is we make even the smallest of changes on these big projects. So I'm going to go ahead and get the pattern floated and go ahead and start installing this. Moving over to the passenger side of the GR, we're going to start the doors. So we need to get this panel off like I mentioned before, that way we can get the door handle out. So what we need to do is remove these trim pieces. We're going to access 3 screws. Once we get the screws out, we'll disconnect the door cables that manage the lock and the handle, and then we just pop the panel off, remove the moisture barrier, pull the handle out, and then everything will be accessible and open and ready for install. So I'm going to show you guys how to pull all this apart and then lay the door down. Disconnect our wiring harness. Coming down here from the bottom of the door. There we go. Comes right out like that. Forgot to mention that the door molding has to come off. Pretty straightforward. Got 3 clips here. We'll pop those out and then just pull it straight off. Door panels off. We just need to remove this moisture barrier, pull the cables out of the way, and then we'll be able to get to that white clip, like I mentioned before, that holds the handle in. Once we take it out, we're ready to install. The moisture barrier is held on by this black gooey stuff. Give it a little stretch and just give it a nice clean cut to separate it. And when we put it back together, we'll smash it back in, and it molds itself back together like it never happened. And there's that little clip that we need to open up. And here you can see it's open. And the handle comes straight out. Alright, so we're in the middle of doing full car PPF on this GR Corolla. I've already laid most of the film down the front side of the cars. This door is already done, and as you can see, you cannot see it. We pulled the window trim, the door handle, and this molding. Everything is tucked behind it. We replace it, and you'll never know that the film is on the panel. We need to replicate that install on the front door. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. We've already removed the window trim, just kind of shimmy it loose and pull it up, so not a big deal. The next thing we need to do is get the door handle off and the mirror off. So the first thing we need to do is get the door panel off. After that, what we're going to need to do is disconnect all the wiring harnesses for the buttons and also the cables for the door latch and the locking mechanism. Once everything is disconnected, we pull the panel out. We'll remove the moisture barrier to get us access to the interior of the door, and then we'll pull off the retaining clip that holds the handle in place. Take the Torx bit out of here, and then that handle can come off. We remove the wiring harness. After that, the final step is the mirror. We'll get into the front of the door card. There's only one small cover that covers it. It's 3 10mm bolts. Take that out, and then the mirror slides right off, nice and smooth. This white retaining clip right here is the one that we do all of this work for. Toyotas and Lexus are the only cars that have this. So if you want to take the handles off, this has to come off, and it's super simple. Squeeze it, pull it out, and now the handle's released. We'll disconnect the wiring harness, and then it'll come straight out. Alright, so I've got everything disconnected from the door handle. Before we pull it off, we want to do something very important. We're going to put a rag right in here in the latch to block the door from closing. Because once we pull that handle off, if the latch closes over this, then it's stuck closed, and we'll have to climb through the inside of the car and open it manually. Obviously, we don't want to do that. So with that in place, we can spin this around and work on getting the door handle out. So we just need to pop this pin up. Got everything taken off. I'm going to go ahead and clean where all of the hidden areas were from the pieces. We'll install the paint protection film, put it back together, then you guys can see what it looks like when it's all wrapped up.